Danielle Whitmore stepped out of the dark blue sedan with a tired grace that only years of travel could teach. One hand clutched the worn leather handle of her travel bag. The other adjusted a wide-brimmed straw hat that shielded her from the dense Florida sun. The heat settled around her like a second skin, thick and persistent, but she didn't flinch. What always made her weary wasn't the climatite, was the way strangers looked at her when she didn't walk and dress like the CEO she was. That afternoon, she wore black sneakers, a loose pair of cotton slacks, and a faded linen blouse. No rings, no earrings, no staff in tow. Just Danielle. Just tired. She paused outside the automatic glass doors of Whitmore Grand Tampa, 12 floors of glass and polished stone, a rooftop lounge named among the best in the region by South Shore Living. She didn't expect fanfare. She simply wanted a bed. And maybe, if the kitchen was still open, the corn chowder she helped design with the original head chef back in 2010. Inside, the lobby was cool, sleek, and curated with the kind of detail that screamed intention. The marble floors reflected the soft gold lighting overhead. At the front desk, a young woman stood behind a glossy counter, her navy blazer just a little too big, her nameplate Brielle slightly crooked. Danielle noticed, not as criticism, but because these small things were signals. They told stories about management, about pride in presentation. She gave a warm but subdued smile and approached. "Good evening," Danielle said softly. "I've had a long day. I'll need a suite for the night, preferably a corner if it's open." Brielle gave her a quick once-over, her polite expression barely concealing disinterest. "I'm sorry, Mom. We're completely booked tonight." Danielle tilted her head slightly. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Brielle replied. "There's a convention in town. We're at full capacity." Danielle glanced toward the lobby screen on the wall behind the desk. A scrolling list of available rooms showed 5 options still open. She caught them before the display blinked to the next cycle. "That screen shows availability," she noted calmly. "Oh," Brielle said, quickly clicking her mouse. "That's probably a glitch. Our system's slow to update." Danielle didn't press. She waited, her fingers resting lightly on the counter. She'd waited longer before A91. She spent 7 hours in a holding room just to pitch her first investor meeting. This wasn't new, but there was a tone in Brielle's voice familiar, dismissive that scratched at an old memory. "Would you mind double-checking?" Danielle asked, still calm. With a sigh, Brielle typed a few keys, clearly hoping the woman in front of her would just give up. Moments later, she said, "I'm sorry, but we're not taking walk-ins. You could try the Glenmore down the street. They're a bit more affordable." There it was. That tone. Danielle's shoulders tensed for a fraction of a second, but she didn't show it. The couple standing behind her in line shifted uncomfortably. A bellhop at the luggage station briefly looked over, then quickly away. Danielle leaned in, not angry, just precise. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. Brielle frowned. "No. Should I?" "Not necessarily," Danielle replied, her voice still even. "But you should know your guests, especially the ones whose portraits are hanging behind you." Brielle blinked, confused, then turned. There, framed in gold above the concierge board, was the oil painting. Danielle Whitmore, founder. "So, you didn't realize." "You didn't ask," Danielle said. She stepped back and pulled out her phone. No raised voice, no drama. Just a measured call. "I need a suite." She hadn't even finished the call when the doors at the lobby's entrance opened, and a man in a tailored gray suit hurried toward her. "MS. Whitmore," he said, out of breath. "I didn't know you were in town." "I wasn't planning to be," she said without looking at him. "But I needed to see things for myself." This was Mason Dale, Regional Operations Director. Mid-40s, graying at the sides, always smelled faintly of espresso and fresh printed paperwork. As he turned to Brielle, his expression shifted slowly, registering what had just taken place. His eyes flicked toward the screen behind the desk, where the 5 available rooms still glowed green. "Brielle," he said, his voice suddenly professional and quiet. "This is MS. Danielle Whitmore, the founder." The young woman froze, mouth half open. Mason didn't wait. He stepped behind the desk, typed a few commands, and handed Danielle a room key with both hands. Corner suite, of course. Welcome back. Danielle accepted the key but didn't head for the elevators. She stood her ground, her presence expanding like quiet thunder through the room. "I'd like to hear what she was thinking," she said, nodding toward Brielle. The girl's voice trembled. "I didn't mean I didn't recognize you. I thought you were just..." "Just what?" Danielle asked. "Just someone off the street." "And what made you think someone off the street didn't deserve a room when rooms were available?" "I thought maybe you were looking for something more affordable." Danielle raised an eyebrow. Brielle added quickly, "I didn't mean anything by it. I was just following policy." "What policy is that?" Danielle asked. Silence. Danielle turned to Mason. "Is there a written policy that says staff may turn away guests based on appearance?" "Absolutely not." Then what was she following? The room shifted. Guests who'd pretended not to listen were now clearly eavesdropping. But Danielle wasn't speaking to make a scene. She never did. She built her empire on discipline, not drama. "I've spent over 30 years building a brand around respect," she said. "For our guests. For our teams. For the name that's on the building." Mason nodded. "Would you like to speak privately?" "No. This isn't a private matter. It's a cultural one." Brielle's hands were clasped tightly. She looked like she wanted to disappear. "I came here to see how this place runs when no one's watching," Danielle said. "When the person walking in doesn't look like someone important. Because this," she motioned around the immaculate lobby, "was built for everyone. Not just the well-dressed. Not just the wealthy. Everyone." Danielle turned to Mason. "I want the entire front desk team in the lounge. 15 minutes. It's after 9. Some of the team's gone for the night. Then bring whoever's still here. No lectures, no write-ups. Just a conversation. Unless it's too late for a little accountability." He nodded and made the call. Danielle wandered toward the grand hallway near the elevators, fingers brushing the textured wall finish she had personally signed off on. Every corner of the building bore her touch. The color palettes, the reclaimed wood tables, the curated art collection, most of it from Black artists across the Southeast. Nothing about this place happened by accident. A young woman near the bar approached her, hesitating. "Excuse me, are you Danielle Whitmore?" Danielle smiled. "Yes. My mom's in real estate. She used to talk about you. Said you were the first Black woman to open a luxury hotel on the Gulf." Danielle nodded, warmth in her eyes. "That's true. It's just kind of amazing to see you here." "I like to show up unannounced," Danielle said, chuckling. "Keeps people honest." Soon after, Mason returned. They're in the lounge. Danielle walked in, remaining on her feet. 6 staff members sat waiting, some confused, others clearly aware of what had happened. Brielle sat furthest from the door, pen in hand. "This isn't about shaming," Danielle began. "We're not talking about race or status or even respect. We're talking about judgment." She let the word settle. Judgment is when a woman in sneakers is treated differently than a man in a blazer. It's when someone is dismissed before they even say their name. She turned slightly toward Brielle. "I walked into this hotel in gowns and pearls, and I've walked in wearing hoodies and flats. That shouldn't change the way I'm treated. It shouldn't change the way anyone is treated." "I didn't mean to disrespect you," Brielle said quietly. "I believe you," Danielle said. "But intent doesn't erase impact. If I weren't me," she added, "you would have turned away someone who just needed a place to sleep." The room was silent, but not heavy, thoughtful. "Titles don't make you a leader. Courage does," Danielle continued. "Some of you stood back tonight. That's human. What you do next, that's leadership." They nodded. Then she said, "Follow me." She led them to a side hallway. At the end, beneath dim lighting, hung a portrait. Danielle, at age 34, standing in front of her very first hotel in Pensacola. The brass plate read, "Founder, Visionary, Builder." "This was 6 weeks after I signed the deal," she said. "I used my mother's insurance money and 3 loans I was told I'd never get." She faced them. "I was once turned away from a hotel for how I looked. That's why I built this chain. Not for revenge, but to make sure no one like me ever felt unwelcome again." They stood in silence. Back in the lounge, Danielle faced the group again. "Let's talk systems," she said. "Because when a mistake happens, it usually means the system failed first. She looked at Ryland, the front desk supervisor. What's the protocol for walk-ins? If we're under 90% capacity, we book them. If not, we call a manager. Danielle turned to Brielle. Did you know that? Yes, she admitted. I just assumed. You didn't check. You didn't ask. That's the gap we need to close. She walked to the whiteboard and wrote 3 words: awareness, access, accountability. We're revising your check-in language tonight, she said. Not next week. Now. Amaya, the housekeeper from earlier, raised her hand. Can we also add something that gives us permission to speak up if we see something wrong? Danielle smiled. Absolutely. Then Melvin, the night security guard, asked, what about someone who messes up once, but learns from it? They get a second chance, Danielle said, but they have to earn it. She looked at Brielle again. You'll reapply tomorrow. Not as punishment, but to prove you understand what happened. I'd like to come back, Brielle whispered. Then come back better. Danielle turned to Amaya. You spoke up when you didn't have to. You're getting a raise. Mason, make it happen. Seriously? Amaya blinked. Seriously? That's what leadership looks like. As the team dispersed, someone asked, can we keep doing this? Even when you're not here? Danielle nodded. I want culture, not performance. Mason set monthly roundtables. No suits. No scripts. Later that night, Danielle stepped into the elevator alone. Mason caught the door. You're really staying tonight? Danielle pressed 12. Of course. It's my house. Her suite hadn't changed much, same warm tones, same custom desk. She sat down, pulled out hotel stationery, and began to write. To all Whitmore staff, from the desk of Danielle Whitmore. Our work starts the moment someone walks through our door. Not when they flash a card. Not when they look like they belong. The moment they arrive. She signed the note, sealed it in an envelope, and set it aside for Mason to distribute. Then came a knock. Room service. A young man stood holding a tray. Mom, cordon chaude. Senpai MS. Amaya. Said you'd want it. Danielle smiled. She was right. As he turned to leave, he added, my mom worked at the Whitmore in Charleston. She always said you remembered everyone's name. Even the dishwashers. What's your name? Jalen. Well, Jalen, thank you for the soup. He grinned. Good night, ma'am. She closed the door, returned to her desk, and took the first spoonful. Still perfect. Legacy isn't built in applause. It's built in moments. Small ones. Honest ones. And that night, Danielle made sure her legacy stood taller than ever.